Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're hearing the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any section using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Post-structuralist and their contributions to discourse analysis. This article introduces several key post-structuralist thinkers and their profound contributions to the field of discourse analysis. Exploring the groundbreaking work of theorists like Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, Judith Butler, and others, it elucidates how their ideas on language, power, and identity have reshaped our understanding of discourse. From Derrida's concept of deconstruction, which challenges the fixity of meaning in texts, to Foucault's notions of power, knowledge that reveal the power dynamics within discursive practices, and Butler's theory of performativity that redefines gender as a social construct, the article highlights the transformative impact of post-structuralism on analyzing and interpreting discourse. Each section is dedicated to a specific theorist, presenting their main ideas and their implications for understanding the intricate relationships between language, power, and societal structures in a clear and accessible manner. 1. Jacques Derrida, Deconstruction and Difference. 1. Short biography. Jacques Derrida, 1930–2004, was an Algerian-born French philosopher, best known as the founder of deconstruction. His work profoundly influenced post-structuralism, literary theory, and a broad range of humanities and social sciences disciplines. Derrida's philosophy questioned the assumptions of Western thought, especially regarding the presence, identity, and the possibility of stable meaning in texts. He received his education in philosophy at the École Normale Supérieure in Paris, where he was influenced by many thinkers, but he would go on to question and deconstruct the philosophical traditions they represented. 2. Overview and impact of deconstruction. Deconstruction is a critical approach that seeks to uncover the multiple interpretations of texts and to demonstrate that language is capable of conveying contradictory meanings. Derrida argued that texts contain hierarchical oppositions, e.g., speech, writing, presence, absence, culture, nature, where one term is privileged over the other. Deconstruction involves inverting these oppositions and showing that these structures depend on each other and are not as rigid as they seem. The impact of deconstruction on discourse analysis is profound. It challenges the idea that language can transparently communicate meaning, suggesting instead that meaning is always deferred, subject to interpretation, and entangled in power relations. This approach has led discourse analysts to pay closer attention to the subtleties of text, the interplay of meanings, and the socio-political contexts in which discourse operates. 3. Concept of difference and its significance in discourse analysis. Derrida introduced the concept of difference, a deliberate misspelling of différence, to include the notion of deferral, to articulate the process of meaning deferral in language. Difference refers to both the difference and deferral of meaning in language. It suggests that words do not have a fixed meaning but acquire meaning through their difference from and relation to other words. This process is endless. Meanings are always deferred to other meanings in an infinite chain of signification. In discourse analysis, the concept of difference is crucial for understanding how meaning is constructed, contested, and renegotiated in social contexts. It implies that discourses are never stable or neutral but are sites of struggle where meanings are perpetually in flux. This perspective encourages analysts to explore how discourses construct social realities, how they are imbued with ideologies, and how they can be deconstructed to reveal the complexity and multiplicity of meanings. Through this lens, discourse analysis becomes not just a tool for examining language use but a critical methodology for interrogating the power dynamics and social constructions that shape our understanding of the world. 2. Michel Foucault, Power, Knowledge and Discursive Formations. 1. Short biography. Michel Foucault, 1926–1984, was a French philosopher, historian, and social theorist. He is one of the most influential figures in 20th-century French philosophy, particularly in the post-structuralist movement. Foucault's work is characterized by its deep analysis of historical and philosophical systems of thought, and he is best known for his critical studies of social institutions, including psychiatry, the human sciences, the prison system, and the history of sexual morality. His education at the École Normale Supérieure exposed him to the work of many prominent French intellectuals, significantly shaping his critical approach. Foucault's methodology and theories challenge traditional notions of power and knowledge, proposing that they are not merely linked but fundamentally entwined in what he calls power-knowledge relations. 2. Foucault's theories on power-knowledge relationships. Foucault's concept of power-knowledge significantly deviates from the idea of power as something possessed by individuals or groups. Instead, he sees power as diffused and embodied in discourse, institutions, architectural arrangements, regulations, and scientific statements. This perspective argues that knowledge and power are co-constitutive. Knowledge shapes and is shaped by power relations, and power is exercised through the production, restriction, and distribution of knowledge. For Foucault, discourses are instrumental in this process, as they define what can be said, thought, and considered true or false in any given era. 3. His methodology for analyzing discursive formations. Foucault introduced the concept of discursive formations as part of his broader effort to analyze the relationship between language, social institutions, and power. A discursive formation, in Foucault's terms, refers to a body of anonymous, historical rules, always determined in time and space, that have defined a given period and area of social knowledge. These rules govern the production of discourses, determine what counts as meaningful statements, and set the limits of what can be said within a particular domain of knowledge. Foucault's methodology for analyzing discursive formations involves several key steps. Archaeology of knowledge. This approach involves analyzing discourses as historical objects, tracing the rules and conditions under which knowledge claims are formed, legitimized, and circulated. Genealogy. Inspired by Nietzsche, Foucault's genealogical method explores the origins and evolution of discourses, focusing on the power relations that inform their development. This involves a historical critique that exposes how discourses are used to exert control and shape social practices. Examination of discursive practices. Foucault studies the practices that produce discursive objects, subjects, and concepts, scrutinizing how these practices are embedded within broader social, economic, and political structures. Foucault's work on discursive formations and power-knowledge relationships offers a powerful toolkit for discourse analysis, enabling scholars to uncover the underlying power dynamics that shape knowledge production and social reality. By focusing on the ways in which discourses are constructed and operate within specific historical and institutional contexts, Foucault's methodology reveals the contingent, constructed nature of what we take to be objective truth, highlighting the role of discourse in the exercise of power and the construction of social identities and realities. 3. Roland Barthes, Mythologies and the Death of the Author. 1. Short biography. Roland Barthes, 1915–1980, was a pioneering French literary theorist, semiotician, and critic, whose work has profoundly impacted the fields of structuralism, semiotics, and cultural studies. Barthes's intellectual journey spanned several phases, from his early work on mythologies and semiotics to his later writings on textuality, pleasure, and the role of the reader. His interdisciplinary approach brought insights from linguistics, anthropology, and psychoanalysis into the study of literature and culture, making him a central figure in post-structuralist thought. Through his nuanced analyses of texts and cultural phenomena, Barthes critically examined the ways in which meaning is constructed and communicated in society. 2. Exploration of cultural myths through discourse analysis. In his seminal work, Mythologies, Barthes explores the concept of myth in contemporary culture, analyzing a wide range of everyday objects and narratives, from wrestling matches to soap powders, as systems of meaning. He argued that these myths serve as vehicles for ideology, transforming history into nature and thereby naturalizing particular views of the world. Through his analysis, Barthes demonstrated how seemingly innocuous cultural artifacts could reinforce dominant ideologies, such as capitalism, patriarchy, and colonialism. His approach to discourse analysis emphasized the significance of cultural practices and objects in the construction of social realities, revealing the ideological underpinnings and power relations embedded within them. 3. The death of the author and the role of the reader. One of Barthes's most influential concepts is the death of the author, which he articulated in an essay of the same name. This idea challenges the traditional view of authorial intent as the primary source of a text's meaning, arguing instead that it is the reader who creates meaning through the act of interpretation. According to Barthes, the text exists independently of the author's intentions and belongs to the public domain of language, where it is open to an infinite number of interpretations. This shift in focus from author to reader emphasizes the power of discourse and the active role of interpretation in meaning-making. By declaring the death of the author, Barthes democratized the process of interpretation, suggesting that meaning is not fixed or authoritative but rather fluid and contingent on the interplay between text and reader. Roland Barthes's contributions to discourse analysis and theory, particularly through his concepts of mythologies and the death of the author, underscore the intricate ways in which power, ideology, and meaning intersect in the realm of language. His work invites a critical examination of cultural practices and texts, encouraging readers to question the assumptions and power structures that shape our understanding of the world. 4. Judith Butler, Performativity and Gender Discourse. 1. Short biography. Judith Butler, born in 1956, is a prominent American philosopher and gender theorist whose groundbreaking work has significantly influenced feminist theory, queer theory, political philosophy, and ethics. Butler is best known for her theory of gender performativity, articulated in her seminal works such as Gender Trouble, 1990, and Bodies That Matter, 1993. She teaches at the University of California, Berkeley, where her research continues to challenge conventional notions of gender, identity, and the body. Butler's work has expanded the scope of discourse analysis by incorporating the study of gender and sexuality, revealing the complex ways in which power dynamics are embedded in language and social practices. 2. Concept of performativity in gender identity construction. Butler's concept of performativity is central to understanding the construction of gender identity. She argues that gender is not a fixed attribute or inherent identity but rather an ongoing performance enacted through repeated behaviors, gestures, and language. This performance is governed by societal norms and expectations, which dictate the ways in which individuals embody and express gender. According to Butler, gender identity is produced through the citation of these norms, which are themselves discursively constructed. This means that gender is not something one is, but something one does, an act, or series of acts, performed in accordance with social expectations. The notion of performativity challenges the traditional binary understanding of gender as naturally or biologically determined, suggesting instead that gender is a social construct produced and reproduced through discourse. This has profound implications for discourse analysis, especially in the study of how language and social interactions contribute to the construction of gendered subjects. 3. Contributions to gender discourse analysis. Butler's work has profoundly impacted the field of gender discourse analysis, offering new tools and perspectives for examining how gender identities are formed, negotiated, and contested within various discourses. She challenges the binary gender norms that dominate Western thought, highlighting the performative nature of identity and the role of discourse in maintaining or subverting these norms. Butler argues that the repeated performance of gendered behaviors and language not only produces the illusion of a stable gender identity but also creates the possibility for resistance and subversion. By disrupting the performance of normative gender roles, individuals can challenge the binary gender framework and the power structures it supports. Butler's contributions extend beyond theoretical insights. Her work encourages a critical examination of the discourses that shape understandings of gender and sexuality. Through the lens of performativity, discourse analysts can explore the ways in which gender is constructed, maintained, and challenged in various textual and social practices. This perspective illuminates the complex interplay between language, power, and identity, offering a nuanced understanding of the dynamics at work in the construction of gendered selves and societies. 5. Julia Kristeva, Semiotics and Intertextuality. 1. Short biography. Julia Kristeva, born in 1941 in Bulgaria, is a distinguished philosopher, literary critic, and psychoanalyst who has lived and worked in France since the 1960s. Her interdisciplinary work bridges the fields of semiotics, the study of signs, psychoanalysis, and feminist theory, making her a pivotal figure in post-structuralist thought. Kristeva's contributions have significantly influenced contemporary theories of textuality, identity, and power. Educated at the University of Sofia and later at the École pratique des hautes études in Paris, she became closely associated with the Téléphone Quelle group, which was instrumental in the development of post-structuralist theory. Kristeva's work is renowned for its depth and complexity, offering profound insights into language, subjectivity, and the social world. 2. Introduction to Semiotics and Symbolic Language. Kristeva's work in semiotics, particularly her focus on the symbolic language, has been fundamental in expanding our understanding of how meaning is constructed and conveyed. Drawing from Ferdinand de Saussure's structuralist linguistics and psychoanalytic theories, especially those of Jacques Lacan, Kristeva proposes that language is a dynamic system of signs that operates both at the level of communication and at the level of the unconscious. For Kristeva, the symbolic aspect of language is not merely a system of representing reality but a complex process that shapes our perceptions, emotions, and identities. Her analysis goes beyond the traditional boundaries of semiotics to explore how the symbolic language interacts with the semiotic, a pre-linguistic realm associated with the bodily drives and rhythms, highlighting the affective dimension of language and textuality. 3. Kristeva's notion of intertextuality. One of Kristeva's most influential contributions to discourse analysis is her concept of intertextuality. This idea challenges the notion of a text as a self-contained, autonomous entity, arguing instead that every text is a mosaic of quotations, influenced by and connected to other texts. For Kristeva, the meaning of a text is not inherent but emerges from its relationship to other texts, through processes of citation, reference, and transformation. This perspective opens up textual analysis to a broader consideration of the cultural, historical, and social contexts in which texts are produced and received. Intertextuality underscores the interconnectedness of discourses, suggesting that texts participate in a network of textual relations that span across time and space. This has significant implications for how we understand authorship, originality, and the production of meaning. In Kristeva's view, the author is not the sole creator of meaning. Rather, meaning is co-produced by the text, its predecessors, and its readers, within a dynamic field of cultural and historical forces. Kristeva's notions of semiotics, symbolic language, and intertextuality have profoundly influenced the fields of literary theory, cultural studies, and discourse analysis. Her work challenges us to see texts not as isolated works but as part of an ongoing dialogue with other texts and discourses, enriching our understanding of the complexities of meaning-making and the power dynamics that shape our interpretations of the world. 6. Jacques Lacan. Psychoanalytic Theory and the Symbolic Order. 1. Short biography. Jacques Lacan, born in 1901 in Paris, was a towering figure in 20th-century psychoanalysis, whose work profoundly synthesized psychoanalytic theory with structuralist and post-structuralist thought. Lacan's intellectual career was marked by his endeavor to return to the foundational texts of Freudian psychoanalysis, which he believed had been misinterpreted by the psychoanalytic establishment of his time. By reintroducing and reinterpreting Freud through the lens of structural linguistics, philosophy, and anthropology, Lacan offered a new understanding of the human psyche and its relation to language and culture. His teachings and writings, especially his famous seminars held in Paris from the 1950s until his death in 1981, have left an indelible mark on psychoanalysis, literary theory, cultural studies, and beyond. 2. Lacan's psychoanalytic contributions to understanding the symbolic order of language. Lacan's theory of the symbolic order is central to his psychoanalytic framework, positing that the unconscious is structured like a language. This revolutionary idea suggests that the unconscious mind operates through linguistic mechanisms, such as metaphor and metonymy, and is profoundly influenced by the symbolic systems within which individuals live. The symbolic order encompasses the norms, laws, and structures of language that govern social interaction and shape individual subjectivity. For Lacan, entry into the symbolic order occurs through the mirror stage, a developmental moment when the child recognizes their image in the mirror as a whole entity, leading to the formation of the I, or ego. This recognition marks the child's entrance into a world mediated by symbols and language, forever altering their relation to the self and the external world. 3. Implications for discourse analysis and subjectivity. Lacan's insights into the symbolic order and the structuring of the unconscious by language have profound implications for discourse analysis. His work illuminates the ways in which discourse is not merely a reflection of social reality but a constitutive force that shapes our understanding of the world and ourselves. Lacanian theory suggests that discourses carry the power to structure subjectivity, influencing how individuals perceive themselves and their relations to others. This perspective opens up discourse analysis to a deeper exploration of the unconscious dimensions of language use, including the ways in which desire, identity, and power are articulated and negotiated through discourse. Lacan's concept of the big other represents the symbolic order and the social laws that regulate desire and subjectivity. In discourse analysis, this concept can be used to examine how societal norms and ideologies are internalized and reproduced through language, shaping individual behaviors and beliefs. Furthermore, Lacan's emphasis on the lack or gap within the symbolic order, where meaning is always deferred and incomplete, resonates with post-structuralist views on the instability and multiplicity of meaning in discourse. This theoretical framework encourages analysts to explore the slippages, contradictions, and ambiguities within discourses, revealing the complex dynamics of power, resistance, and subject formation. Jacques Lacan's integration of psychoanalytic theory with structuralism and post-structuralism provides valuable tools for understanding the intricate relationship between language, the unconscious, and the construction of subjectivity. His work challenges discourse analysts to consider the deep psychological processes underlying discursive practices, offering a richer, more nuanced approach to the study of language and power. 7. Jean Baudrillard, Simulacra and Simulation. 1. Short biography. Jean Baudrillard, 1929–2007, emerged as one of the most provocative and insightful figures in the field of French sociology, philosophy, and cultural theory in the latter half of the 20th century. His extensive critique of contemporary society traversed the realms of media, technology, art, and culture, positioning him as a critical voice in post-structuralist thought. Baudrillard's work, characterized by its exploration of simulation, hyperreality, and the interplay between reality and representation, offered a radical perspective on the implications of modern media and consumer culture. Educated at the University of Paris, Sorbonne, Baudrillard initially taught German, which led him to the work of Marx, Saussure, and eventually to the field of sociology. Over his career, his thinking evolved from a Marxist-inflected critique of consumer society to a more singular position that some describe as postmodern, though he himself resisted this label. 2. Analysis of simulacra and simulation. In his seminal work, Simulacra and Simulation, Baudrillard explores the concepts of simulacra, copies without originals, and simulation, the process by which reality is replicated, arguing that in contemporary society, simulacra have replaced the real. This shift marks a move into the era of hyperreality, where the distinction between reality and its representation blurs and, in many cases, becomes irrelevant. According to Baudrillard, the proliferation of images and signs in the media saturates the human experience to the extent that these representations start to function as reality itself. This process is facilitated by technology and media, which mediate our experiences and perceptions of the world, leading to a condition where reality is no longer distinguishable from the simulation of reality. 3. Baudrillard's impact on the study of media discourses. Baudrillard's theories have profound implications for the study of media discourses and their role in constructing perceived realities. His work suggests that media do not merely reflect or distort reality but actively participate in creating it. This perspective invites a critical analysis of how media discourses shape our understanding of the world, influencing not just our perceptions but our experiences and social practices. In the context of discourse analysis, Baudrillard's ideas encourage scholars to explore the mechanisms through which media narratives and images construct the frameworks within which reality is understood and engaged with. Baudrillard's concept of hyperreality is particularly relevant in the analysis of how digital media and the Internet have further complicated the relationship between the real and the represented. His work anticipates many of the concerns of the 21st century, including the impact of social media on identity, the proliferation of fake news, and the political and cultural consequences of living in a mediated society. By examining the ways in which media discourses contribute to the construction of hyperrealities, scholars can uncover the power dynamics and ideological underpinnings of contemporary culture and society. Jean Baudrillard's exploration of simulacra and simulation offers a critical lens through which to understand the complexities of media, culture, and society in the postmodern world. His work challenges us to question the nature of reality in an age dominated by media representations, providing valuable insights into the study of media discourses and their profound impact on our perceptions, identities, and social realities. 8. Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari. Rhizomatic Analysis and Deterritorialization. 1. Short biographies. Gilles Deleuze, 1925–1995, and Félix Guattari, 1930–1992, were two of the most innovative and influential French philosophers of the late 20th century, known for their collaborative works that transcend traditional academic boundaries. Deleuze, a philosopher, and Guattari, a psychoanalyst and political activist, developed a unique and radical body of work that integrates insights from psychoanalysis, politics, linguistics, and other disciplines. Their collaboration resulted in several groundbreaking texts, including Anti-Oedipus, 1972, and 1,000 Plateaus, 1980, which challenge conventional notions of desire, power, and social organization. Their work is characterized by a profound critique of hierarchical structures and a celebration of difference, multiplicity, and becoming. 2. Introduction to concepts of rhizome and deterritorialization. One of the key concepts introduced by Deleuze and Guattari is that of the rhizome, a botanical metaphor drawn from the way certain plants grow through horizontal, underground stems. Unlike trees, which have a central trunk and hierarchical branch structure, rhizomes are nonlinear, decentralized, and open-ended. This concept is used to challenge traditional hierarchical models of knowledge, organization, and cultural production, proposing instead a model of thought and social formation that is fluid, interconnected, and constantly in the process of becoming. Deterritorialization is another central concept in Deleuze and Guattari's thought, referring to the process by which rigid structures, territories, are dismantled or become destabilized, allowing for the flow of desires, meanings, and identities in new and unexpected directions. This concept is complemented by reterritorialization, which describes the formation of new territories or structures from these flows. Together, these concepts offer a dynamic understanding of social and psychological processes, emphasizing change, fluidity, and the potential for innovation and resistance within systems of power. 3. Their application in analyzing discursive practices. Deleuze and Guattari's concepts of the rhizome and deterritorialization have profound implications for the analysis of discursive practices. In the context of discourse analysis, a rhizomatic approach emphasizes the multiplicity, connectivity, and heterogeneity of discourses, resisting the temptation to impose rigid categories or hierarchical structures on the fluid landscape of language and meaning. This perspective encourages analysts to explore the ways in which discourses intersect, overlap, and influence each other across different domains and levels of society, revealing the complex web of relationships that shape our understanding of the world. Deterritorialization offers a lens through which to examine how discourses can disrupt or subvert established meanings, identities, and power relations, opening up spaces for alternative narratives and forms of subjectivity. By focusing on the dynamic processes through which discourses are constantly being dismantled and reassembled, analysts can gain insight into the mechanisms of social change and the potential for emancipatory practices within language and culture. Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari's contributions to discourse analysis challenge conventional methodologies and frameworks, advocating for a more open, fluid, and interconnected approach to understanding language, power, and social life. Their work inspires scholars and practitioners to rethink the nature of discursive practices, highlighting the inherent possibilities for creativity, resistance, and transformation within the domain of discourse. 9. Ernesto Laclau and Chantal Mouffe, Discourse Theory and Hegemony. 1. Short biographies. Ernesto Laclau, 1935–2014, and Chantal Mouffe, born 1943, stand out as prominent figures in contemporary political theory, known for their innovative contributions to discourse theory within a radical democratic framework. Both theorists have backgrounds deeply rooted in political activism and academia, which have informed their collaborative and individual works. Laclau, an Argentine political theorist, and Mouffe, a Belgian theorist, are perhaps best known for their seminal work, Hegemony and Socialist Strategy, Towards a Radical Democratic Politics, published in 1985. This work marked a significant departure from traditional Marxist theory, incorporating elements of post-structuralist thought to reconceptualize identity, power, and social struggle. 2. Development of discourse theory and the concept of hegemony. Laclau and Mouffe's discourse theory challenges the notion of fixed social and political identities, arguing instead that identities are constructed through discursive practices. In this view, discourses are not merely reflective of social reality but actively shape and constitute it. They argue that power relations are embedded within discourses, which serve to establish and naturalize certain views of the world while marginalizing others. This perspective shifts the focus from economic structures and class struggle to the ways in which meaning is created and contested within the social and political arena. Central to their theory is the concept of hegemony, which they redefine in a post-Marxist context as the process through which certain discourses become dominant, shaping our understanding of what is possible, natural, and legitimate. Hegemony is achieved not through coercion alone but through the articulation of diverse elements into a coherent framework that resonates with people's experiences and aspirations. This involves the creation of nodal points, or privileged signifiers that partially fix meaning, around which discourses are organized. 3. Contributions to political discourse analysis. Laclau and Mouffe's work has profound implications for political discourse analysis, providing tools to examine how discursive formations contribute to the establishment and contestation of power and hegemony. Their approach emphasizes the role of discourse in mobilizing affect and creating political identities, thereby opening up new avenues for understanding the dynamics of social movements, populism, and democratic politics. In their view, political struggles are essentially struggles over the construction of meaning. This perspective allows for a deeper analysis of how political discourses operate, not just in representing interests or ideologies, but in actively constituting the social field and shaping political subjectivities. By focusing on the contingent and constructed nature of political identities and interests, Laclau and Mouffe's discourse theory illuminates the ways in which power is negotiated and contested in the public sphere. Their contributions extend beyond theoretical insights, offering practical approaches for analyzing the strategies through which political actors seek to establish hegemony, as well as the points of resistance and contestation where alternative discourses emerge. This framework has been influential in the study of contemporary political phenomena, including the analysis of political campaigns, the rhetoric of political leaders, and the discourse of protest movements, highlighting the central role of discourse in the struggle for political hegemony. Ernesto Laclau and Chantal Mouffe's discourse theory and rearticulation of hegemony have enriched the field of political discourse analysis, offering a nuanced understanding of the interplay between language, power, and politics. Their work encourages a critical examination of the discursive mechanisms through which social realities and political orders are constructed and challenged, contributing to a deeper understanding of the possibilities for radical democracy and political change. 10. Louis Althusser, Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses. 1. Short biography. Louis Althusser, 1918–1990, was a French Marxist philosopher who made significant contributions to Marxist theory and its application to society and culture. Born in Algeria, Althusser was a prominent intellectual figure in France, particularly in the 1960s and 1970s, and taught at the École Normale Supérieure in Paris, influencing a generation of philosophers and theorists. Despite facing personal and professional challenges, his work has had a lasting impact on critical theory, particularly in terms of his reinterpretation of Marx's writings and his development of the theory of ideology and ideological state apparatuses, ISAs. Althusser's approach diverged from traditional interpretations of Marxism by emphasizing the role of institutions and ideology in the reproduction of capitalist societies. 2. Overview of Althusser's theory. Althusser introduced the concept of ideological state apparatuses, ISAs, to analyze how ideology is perpetuated and institutionalized within society. He distinguished between repressive state apparatuses, RSAs, which include the government, courts, police, and army, and operate primarily through force, and ISAs, which function through ideology in seemingly non-coercive ways. ISAs encompass a wide range of institutions, such as schools, churches, families, the media, and cultural organizations, which disseminate and reinforce the dominant ideology. Althusser argued that ideology is not merely a collection of ideas or beliefs but a material practice that individuals enact in their daily lives. Ideology, according to Althusser, interpolates individuals as subjects, positioning them within a predefined social structure and making them subjects in both senses of the word, as agents and as subjected to power. This process ensures the reproduction of the conditions of production and the perpetuation of capitalist relations of production, by securing the allegiance of individuals to the dominant order without the need for overt coercion. 3. Application to discourse analysis. Althusser's theory of ISAs and his conception of ideology as a material practice have profound implications for discourse analysis. His work encourages analysts to investigate the ways in which language and discourse operate as forms of power that reinforce and disseminate dominant ideologies. From this perspective, discourse is not a neutral medium for communication but a vehicle for the production and reproduction of ideology. Discourse analysts drawing on Althusser's work might explore how educational texts, media content, religious sermons, and legal discourse serve to shape individuals' consciousness and secure their consent to the existing social order. They might examine the discursive practices that construct subject identities in alignment with the requirements of capitalist ideology, such as the valorization of individualism, competition, and consumerism. Althusser's work prompts a critical examination of the hidden structures that influence how meaning is produced, circulated, and understood within various societal contexts. It opens avenues for analyzing the subtle ways in which discourse contributes to the maintenance of power relations and the normalization of the status quo. By focusing on the ideological functions of discourse, analysts can uncover the mechanisms through which social inequalities are naturalized and resistance is marginalized, contributing to a deeper understanding of the dynamics of power and domination in contemporary society. 11. Pierre Bourdieu, Habitus, Capital, and Field. 1. Short biography. Pierre Bourdieu, 1930–2002, was a French sociologist, anthropologist, and philosopher whose work is renowned for its analysis of the dynamics of power within society. Born into a modest family in rural France, Bourdieu's experiences would later influence his academic work, which often focused on social stratification, culture, and education. He studied at the École Normale Supérieure in Paris, where he was influenced by existentialism and the structuralism of Claude Lévi-Strauss. However, Bourdieu would eventually develop his unique theoretical framework, which combined elements of structuralism with a keen observation of social practices. Through extensive empirical research, ranging from Algerian society under French colonial rule to the French education system, Bourdieu sought to reveal the subtle mechanisms of power that maintain social hierarchies. 2. Bourdieu's conceptual framework. Bourdieu's theory revolves around three central concepts: habitus, capital, and field, which together provide a robust framework for analyzing social life and individual behavior within it. Habitus refers to the set of habitual dispositions and inclinations that individuals acquire through their life experiences. It shapes perceptions, actions, and reactions, often unconsciously, based on past experiences and social conditioning. The habitus is both a product of social conditions and an active force that influences future behavior, helping to reproduce social structures over time. Capital in Bourdieu's sense extends beyond economic wealth to include cultural, social, and symbolic forms. Cultural capital can be embodied in skills and knowledge, objectified in cultural goods, and institutionalized as academic qualifications. Social capital refers to resources based on networks of relationships, while symbolic capital involves prestige and recognition. These various forms of capital play a crucial role in determining one's position within the social hierarchy and are instrumental in social competition and mobility. Field is a network or configuration of objective relations among positions of power. Each field has its own rules, stakes, and forms of capital that are valued. Fields are arenas of social struggle where agents and institutions vie to accumulate, convert, and leverage different forms of capital to improve their position. 3. Relevance to discourse analysis. Bourdieu's conceptual framework offers invaluable insights for discourse analysis, particularly in understanding the socio-cultural contexts in which discourse is produced, circulated, and interpreted. By examining how habitus influences discourse practices, analysts can uncover the underlying dispositions that guide the way individuals perceive the world and articulate their thoughts. This perspective highlights the role of unconscious biases and taken-for-granted assumptions in shaping discourse. The concepts of capital and field are crucial for analyzing the power dynamics embedded in discourse. Different forms of capital can afford individuals or groups greater influence in shaping discourses within specific fields, whether in media, politics, academia, or other areas of social life. Bourdieu's framework encourages discourse analysts to explore how discourse contributes to the reproduction of social structures and power relations, examining who has the authority to speak, whose voices are valued, and how discourse practices reinforce or challenge existing social hierarchies. Through the lens of Bourdieu's theory, discourse analysis becomes a tool for uncovering the often invisible mechanisms through which societies maintain and negotiate power, revealing the complex interplay between language, power, and social structure. His work underscores the importance of considering the broader social contexts in which discourse occurs, offering a nuanced approach to understanding the multifaceted nature of communication and its implications for social life. 12. Stuart Hall, Encoding, Decoding and Cultural Studies. 1. Short biography. Stuart Hall, 1932–2014, was a Jamaican-born British sociologist, cultural theorist, and political activist who became one of the most influential figures in the field of cultural studies. His work significantly shaped the development of the discipline, particularly through his association with the Birmingham Centre for Contemporary Cultural Studies in the UK. Hall's intellectual journey was marked by his efforts to understand and articulate the complexities of identity, culture, and power, and by his commitment to a politically engaged form of scholarship. His theoretical contributions traversed the realms of sociology, cultural studies, and media analysis, making him a pivotal figure in the study of how culture mediates social life and power relations. 2. Hall's encoding, decoding model. Stuart Hall's encoding, decoding model, introduced in the 1970s, offers a sophisticated framework for understanding the communication process, particularly in the context of television and other media. According to Hall, the process of communication is constituted by two critical stages: encoding, where media producers imbue messages with specific meanings, and decoding, where audiences interpret and make sense of those messages. Hall identified three potential positions from which audiences can decode messages. Dominant, or hegemonic, reading. The audience decodes the message in the way intended by the producer, accepting the dominant ideology embedded in it. Negotiated reading. The audience broadly accepts the dominant reading but adapts it to reflect their own interests and experiences. Oppositional reading. The audience understands the dominant ideology but decodes the message in a way that challenges or rejects this intended meaning. This model emphasizes the active role of audiences in interpreting media texts, suggesting that the meaning is not fixed by the producer but is created through the interaction between the text and the audience's own cultural background, knowledge, and beliefs. 3. Contributions to discourse analysis and cultural studies. Hall's encoding-decoding model and his broader body of work have had profound implications for discourse analysis and cultural studies. He highlighted the importance of understanding media texts not just as carriers of information or entertainment, but as sites of struggle over meaning, power, and identity. Hall's theories illuminate how media discourses can both reflect and shape societal norms, values, and power relations, and how audiences actively engage with and interpret these discourses. In the context of discourse analysis, Hall's work encourages a nuanced examination of the ways in which power relations and identities are constructed and negotiated through media discourses. His approach underscores the significance of cultural contexts in shaping the production and interpretation of texts, and it points to the need for critical engagement with the ways in which media representations can both challenge and reinforce existing social hierarchies. Stuart Hall's contributions to cultural studies and discourse analysis have laid the groundwork for critical media studies, providing tools and perspectives for analyzing the complex interplay between culture, power, and ideology in contemporary society. His work remains essential for scholars and practitioners seeking to understand the dynamics of media communication and its implications for social and cultural life. Conclusion. The exploration of post-structuralism through the lens of key thinkers like Derrida, Foucault, Barthes, Butler, Kristeva, Lacan, Baudrillard, Deleuze and Guattari, Laclau and Mouffe, Althusser, Bourdieu, and Stuart Hall reveals the profound impact this movement has had on discourse analysis. These theorists have collectively dismantled the rigid structures of structuralism, introducing a fluid and dynamic understanding of language, power, and identity. Their work underscores the notion that meanings are not inherent but are constructed and contested within discursive practices, influenced by power dynamics, historical contexts, and social constructs. From Derrida's deconstruction and Foucault's discursive formations to Butler's gender performativity and Bourdieu's habitus, each concept contributes to a richer, more nuanced understanding of discourse and its role in shaping social realities. This collective body of work challenges us to consider the complexities of language and meaning, the power structures embedded within discourses, and the ongoing construction of identities and realities. As we navigate the ever-evolving landscape of discourse analysis, these post-structuralist perspectives provide critical tools for interrogating the intricate relationships between language, power, and society, emphasizing the need for a continuous, critical examination of discourses and their impact on our understanding of the world. Frequently asked questions. What is post-structuralism, and how does it differ from structuralism? Post-structuralism is a philosophical and linguistic movement that critiques the rigid and deterministic views of structuralism regarding language and culture. Unlike structuralism, which posits fixed structures that determine human culture and cognition, post-structuralism emphasizes the complexity, ambiguity, and fluidity of meanings, suggesting that meanings are produced and reproduced through discursive practices. Who are some key figures in post-structuralism, and what are their main contributions? Jacques Derrida introduced deconstruction and the concept of différance, challenging fixed meanings in texts. Michel Foucault analyzed power, knowledge relationships and discursive formations, showing how knowledge and power are entwined. Roland Barthes explored cultural myths and authored the concept of the death of the author, emphasizing the role of the reader in creating meaning. Judith Butler developed the theory of gender performativity, highlighting gender as a performative act influenced by societal norms. Julia Kristeva focused on semiotics, intertextuality, and the symbolic language, enriching text analysis. Jacques Lacan applied psychoanalytic theory to understand the symbolic order of language and its impact on the psyche. Jean Baudrillard examined simulacra and simulation, analyzing the effects of media on reality and society. Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari introduced concepts like rhizomatic analysis and deterritorialization, challenging hierarchical knowledge structures. Ernesto Laclau and Chantal Mouffe developed discourse theory and the concept of hegemony within a post-Marxist framework. Louis Althusser proposed the idea of ideological state apparatuses, ISAs, to explain how ideology is perpetuated. Pierre Bourdieu offered the concepts of habitus, capital, and field, analyzing social stratification and power. Stuart Hall proposed the encoding-decoding model, analyzing media and audience interactions. How has post-structuralism influenced discourse analysis? Post-structuralism has radically transformed discourse analysis by emphasizing the role of power dynamics, historical contexts, and social constructs in shaping language and meaning. It has introduced a focus on the fluidity and multiplicity of meanings, the construction of identities through discourse, and the critical examination of how discourses shape and are shaped by societal structures. What are some key concepts introduced by post-structuralists that are used in discourse analysis? Deconstruction, analyzing texts to uncover multiple interpretations and contradictions. Discursive formations, the rules and practices that define what is meaningful within a particular domain of knowledge. Gender performativity, the idea that gender identity is constructed through repeated performances in accordance with societal norms. Intertextuality, the concept that texts are influenced by and connected to other texts, shaping their meaning. Simulacra and simulation, the replacement of reality with its representations in media and culture. Rhizomatic analysis, a nonlinear approach to understanding knowledge and cultural production. Hegemony, the process through which certain discourses become dominant, shaping understanding and legitimacy. Ideological state apparatuses, ISAs, institutions that perpetuate the dominant ideology through non-coercive means. Habitus, capital, and field, framework for analyzing social life and the dynamics of power within it. Encoding, decoding, a model for understanding how media messages are produced and interpreted. How do post-structuralist theories apply to the study of gender, media, and culture within discourse analysis? Post-structuralist theories provide tools for analyzing how discourses around gender, media, and culture are constructed and contested. They emphasize the performative nature of gender, the mediated construction of reality, and the role of cultural practices in reinforcing or challenging dominant ideologies. By focusing on the power relations embedded in discourses, post-structuralist approaches encourage a critical examination of how identities and realities are shaped within societal and cultural contexts. Can post-structuralism inform practical applications in discourse analysis? Yes. Post-structuralism informs practical applications in discourse analysis by offering methodologies for deconstructing texts, examining the power dynamics within discourses, and understanding the social construction of identities and realities. These theories guide analysts in exploring the nuances of language use, the influence of societal norms on discourse, and the ways in which discourses contribute to the maintenance or disruption of power structures. How does post-structuralism impact our understanding of authorship and text interpretation? Post-structuralism challenges traditional notions of authorship and text interpretation by emphasizing the role of the reader and the fluidity of meaning. It argues that texts are open to multiple interpretations and that meaning is constructed in the interaction between the text and the reader, rather than being fixed by the author. This shift democratizes the process of interpretation and underscores the active role of audiences in creating meaning.